Okay, great. So welcome to all the viewers on stream. And with that, I'll hand over to you, Carla.
Sure. Thanks, Sebastian. Hi, everybody. I'm Carla Reyes. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the head of business development at Coven, which is a classroom and accelerator for underrepresented game developers. I also am the co-producer of the Care Jam, which is what we will be highlighting during this session today as part of the Now Play This Festival. So the Care Game Jam, just for some context, occurred at the end of last year, and it brought together game developers as well as caregivers and caretakers, where they spent a few days working together to create games that were focused on highlighting a variety of narratives that are centered around the theme of care and looking at this from a range of different perspectives. So today we have the pleasure of having some of our participants, and we're going to go through a bit of a let's play session with some of the participants in the Now Play This design bootcamp, and then we have the designers as well, and we can chat through some of the amazing games that they created during the jam. So the first game that we will start out with is Helping Hands, and if we can please have firstly Amaryllis and May maybe introduce yourselves, starting with Amaryllis.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, amazing. Hello, I'm Amaryllis. I am the 2D artist and co-creator of Helping Hands, together with May. I go by they, them. And in the Care Jam in December, we created this short narrative game, and which I deeply love. I grew to love. Me and May met unexpectedly, and it was very, very fun to work together. And basically, I was just ditched by my team, and they came to me and asked me to join them. And I was like, sure, why not? And we had this idea that they had. And it was very similar to my original idea, and it was like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And so my ideas just ran, and I started designing character, designing environments, and it was just so fun, and I had an amazing time. And here's our game. It's a short narrative game which talks about care and co-ability.
Hello, I'm May. I worked on the development and like the programming for this. I actually mostly work in 3D with Unity. I have RPG Maker's one of my favorite engines. I also want to put the name of our musician. I'm just gonna put their website in the chat if that's okay, because we had a lot of help on, like, the music was really important for this as well as the art. So that's Yasmin's website. And this is definitely one of the most polished projects I've made, simply because it was a collaborative effort. Oh, and whoever's playing this, it's an auto game. So things just kind of happen. And when there's text, you press space.
Thank you so much, Amaryllis and May. So just to kick it off, I'd like to know what particular theme you conveyed within caregiving and why you chose that theme.
I was just thinking about how during this time we've all kind of became caregivers in a more significant way than we probably were previously, just as individuals and our responsibilities to the people in our life. So it's all of us are caregivers, even as well as people that are like professional and personal.
Oh, go ahead, Amaryllis.
Sorry. Yes, this theme resonated so much with me as well, because it fit my the idea of caring about each other and helping each other cope with disability, with struggles, and self-care. So it's a form, as May said, of caregiving as self-care and caring about each other.
Yeah, I think what was particularly interesting is the solidarity between the characters, right? The fact that you have two characters that are actually disabled supporting each other and giving care, which is something that I personally haven't really seen too much within this type of narrative experience. It's usually there's a primary caregiver and a primary caretaker. So do you want to explain a little bit about what inspired you to focus on this specifically, this relationship and dynamic?
So I am disabled. I have like some issues that make it very difficult for me to do very specific things. So like I can go out and people wouldn't really think about it, but at home there's things that are difficult for me. And also a lot of my friends are also disabled and maybe don't have access to the same kinds of like I guess administrative bureaucratic support that I maybe have as somebody like that's like privileged with like really good insurance and stuff like that. So to kind of just get along, just we pick up what we can do. And this is actually me and my partner this is like something that happened with us a couple weeks before we did the jam. And my partner Elliot actually did all these like little small pixel arts, like the mess on the ground. And then I don't know if I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. I have a bit of a speech issue with ours, but I don't know if you have any thing to add as far as your connection to this.
Yes, this theme resonated so much with me as well, because I struggle with mental illness and coping with disability as well a lot. This has like been with me for so many years, and as soon as I saw this project, like as I said before, this was totally unexpected. They came to me and asked me to join with the art, and they told me about the whole story, the whole background. I was like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's very similar to my concept, very similar to my story, very similar to what I want to convey, because I struggle with this kind of issues every day, and I wanted to talk about it in a video game because video games are my favorite artistic way of expression.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'd love to dig into the game development process a little bit and how your experience with the actual jam was, because I know, May, you alluded to the music being a very important element to this game. And I think you're right. You know, it's the combination of the gameplay mechanics, the artwork and the music and so many more elements, I'm sure, in between the lines that have really created this quite cohesive experience that ends up being really poignant. So can you talk a little bit about what some of the highlights were during the game jam and maybe some of the challenges as well?
I think so. Like I've worked a lot with RPG Maker, and this is VX, which was new to me. Most of my experience was with RPG Maker 2000, and I think with this game specifically, the choice of engine was really important because it allowed us to make something that was really well put together in a really short time. So what really like became more important was like, because it took me a while to like get the programming figured out, but it wasn't super complicated. So most of the work was actually like sending Amaryllis templates of the correct proportions, or kind of communicating with Yasmin about what file formats are required. So those were like aspects that were new to me doing. I've actually never done like a collaborative video game. I've worked on analog games and projects, but my video games have always been independent. And because this is a design camp, I just want to mention like going into things, it's sometimes good just to try multiple engines as you start. Because like I started this in 2000 and then moved to VX. And if you have an idea that you want to do in 3D, maybe try it in 2D first.
Thank you so much for that. Amaryllis, was there anything that you wanted to add in terms of highlights for you or any specific challenges?
It was a very fun challenge because something that was not hard but intricate to work around was our time difference, maybe, because I live in Italy and they live in the US. So during the jam, it was, I don't know, maybe before coming to the engine itself, it was probably about the time difference and the time zone. I worked then coming to the engine and everything else. I worked on RPG Maker before, but never did anything like a finished, polished product. And it was honestly amazing because I really love it, because you can make amazing products in a very apparently simple way, but it's actually not simple. It's just very fun and amazing. I daily work with Unreal Engine, which I don't really like. I'd rather work with RPG Maker the whole day, honestly, because it's so fun and lighthearted, and you can make this kind of projects. It's just amazing, and honestly, I love to work more with it, like RPG Maker and more. Yes, I work mostly with Unreal every day and Unity. I'd love to like dig more into RPG Maker and Game Maker mostly.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think it's definitely useful advice, especially if you want to create something more short form or you only have a short time frame, because if you want to create a fully, polished product, then something like RPG Maker would really be able to facilitate that. I'd love to dig into the actual game itself now. I know the audience has been watching the playtester now go through some of the key moments. So just curious, for each of you, Amaryllis and May, was there a particular moment or interaction that especially resonated with you? I know you've already discussed some of your personal connection to the overarching narrative, but would love to know if there's a specific moment in time here that that especially moves you. Maybe if we start with May.
I think for me, it's really like all these little moments with the speech bubbles, because that was something I wanted to do to kind of differentiate this from an RPG Maker game. Same thing with like how some of these proportions aren't like exactly what you would see in most RPG Maker games. And because it is like such kind of like a I guess like dampened experience, like it's not super loud or in your face or energetic. It's just very like a quiet game. I think the speech bubbles kind of went really well with the theme.
Cool. Yeah, I agree. I think there's so much emotion that can be captured, and it's just through the speech bubbles, which is definitely interesting to follow. Amaryllis, was there anything for you?
Honestly, about the whole game making process. The thing that I liked the most was creating the characters. I sent a couple of character studies, and probably that was the most amazing moment for me, because like it was the moment when everything took a shape, a tangible shape, and I could see them acting in an environment, and they weren't just like a picture in my head. And as soon as I saw them moving in the game, I was like, oh my gosh, they're real, they're here, yay! And it's just amazing. Like I had to touch the animation up a lot. I never did that because I don't work much on pixel art. Was actually my first like complete pixel art video game. And when I saw them moving, when I worked on the animation, like the whole character study, putting them in the game, working on the animation pipeline was amazing. And when I saw the finishing product, that was like the most amazing thing. Like it's not just a moment, it's like a series of moments. I love working with characters. I hope to a lot of characters. Well, I'd love to be a full-fledged game dev, but I really love focusing on characters, so that was the moment.
Thank you. And was it your first time participating in a game jam for both of you? And either way, whether or not, do you have any advice for anybody that is maybe starting a game jam for the first time or participating in a game jam for the first time?
This was my first time doing a game jam or making, because most of my game experience has actually been, I go to UC Davis and we have a lot of game design courses there. So I've worked on like a couple group projects with some like stuff on paper, but doing a game jam, like it really was kind of like that front loaded before development started, just that collaboration and like communication, like getting everyone together and figuring out like, okay, when are we going to talk? And like, when is this going to happen? And when do something I was trying to do with the way, like I did that what's happening on the screen right now last. That was the last thing that happened, was me making these characters walk around. So kind of like at the very beginning thinking about, okay, I need, like the music could have happened at any time in the kind of pipeline, but like we needed things in a specific order. Like I couldn't work on this until I had this. So like I gray boxed all of this with pink, like just pink blocks I made in GIMP, which is a photo editing software. And then after that, I sent all the proportions to Amaryllis and they did all of the art. And then I started putting in the art and sending stuff back to be like, does this look good? So I guess like going into a game jam, it helps. For me, what helped is, even though I haven't done this before, I've done a lot of like games projects on a deadline. So kind of going into it, thinking about the production pipeline, especially with if you're using something like Unity versus this. Like if you're using something with more moving pieces in RPG Maker, it becomes really important to break it down into like not goals, but like things you need to get done. And if you miss one of those, you have to pull back and reduce the scope of the project.
Thanks. That's really helpful advice. Amaryllis, do you have any advice?
Yes. So for me, it was the first time joining as a participant in a game jam. I am not new to the whole environment because like I've always had friends participating in game jams, winning game jams. So I've always like admired them. And I was like, oh no, I want to start making video games so much. And this was my first. This was the first time I joined one, and it was honestly amazing. And yes, the advice I like it's like give priorities to like the right priorities to everything. Like divide every task into subtasks and say, okay, I need to make this. I need to get this done, and especially if you're in a very small team with a couple members, because this went very well. We could deliver a finished product because we had a very short time, but we also had a very short project in mind. This is like only 5 minutes long because we were a small team. but we had very clear in mind which path we should take. So for game jams, people don't have to think about like making huge products, especially if they are in very small teams, because otherwise it will lead to unfinished products and yes, you have to give the right priorities to everything.
Thank you so much. It sounds like there's a theme of production and making sure that you have the right scope and outlining everything when you're setting out to begin the project.
Yeah, I also want to say that while the game's really like 5 minutes can be really long for a 1 week project. Like all these games for this game jam are like really, I think, really ambitious because this was a particularly short jam. Because I probably spent like a little over 20 hours working on this. So that's kind of like a idea of like how much work goes into this type of project.
Thank you. That's definitely worth calling out, just so that people get a sense of the true labor of love it is to create any experience like this. Well, thank you so much. Just want to give the opportunity to any of the play testers to ask any questions or thoughts now that we've seen the experience a little bit. Does anybody in the design camp want to share any questions or thoughts? We will also have time at the end for Q&A, but just on this particular game, Helping Hands.
I have a question. What made you decide
Oh, I'm so sorry. Would you mind speaking up a little bit, please? Unless, were you able to hear Amaryllis and May, or? No, okay. Or if you'd like to type it in the chat as well, just in case, and then I can read it. Oh yeah,
Can you hear it?
Yes.
What made you decide to create well, it seems to be a visual, but with better graphics than most visual novels. I wonder what pointed you down that direction.
Well, I was the only like programmer and like the only I was doing all the like in-engine things, and I think being like a solo programmer, like if there were like, I think each of us took on like one thing. So if we had like 2 people working on art and 2 people working on programming, we maybe would have done something with some more interactions, like maybe like walking around an environment or like some kind of puzzle in the game. But because it was like this was like programming more than this would have been a much larger project, or we would have had to make it like really, really short to have like actual.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, making games is challenging. So yes, I can understand and appreciate that. The visual novel and sort of interactive fiction medium is, I think, also very powerful for this type of theme for the game jam, given that we're trying to focus on highlighting care narratives, especially. Well, thank you so much, Amaryllis and May. Oh, were there any other questions from the room? We might, yeah, if there is, then.
Hi, it's not really a question, but I just really like the art and the music for this game. It's like very relaxing and therapeutic, which I think matches your theme very well. And yeah, it just feels nice to like look at and play. And I was wondering also, were you inspired by other games when making this game?
The auto games actually, it's kind of like a subgenre within RPGs. Like RPG Maker games are a whole genre on their own, like separate from RPGs. So that's kind of where I took development inspiration from. And then I don't know if Amaryllis has some inspiration.
Oh, thank you so much. By the way, thank you so much. So my main inspirations are basically how I see the word. First things first. Uh, the things I like, I put them like all together and then merge them with my inspirations I've always had since I was a kid, like comics, uh, manga, anime, cartoons, everything. Like I've always loved playing um, like visual novels, RPGs with a very specific art style. I've always loved like Ace Attorney, uh, like the Professor Layton style, um, the very cartoonish, simple, artistic style, character design. But I love to add my own vision to it, like my own personal elements. That could be like the eyes. I put like the eyes a lot everywhere in my character designs, in my environments, and the colors are like the ones I like the most relaxing ones. I love blue. You can see it. My room is blue. My hair is blue. Everything is blue. So my color palette is very played on the tones of blue. Um, I started working as a professional artist like very recently, so uh, it's uh, it's like since just been like a handful of months since I've given a specific and proper direction to my artistic career and said, okay, I do this because of this, and I do this because of this. Uh, like first, I was a med student. I dropped out after years, and like now I'm giving like a more proper and articulated shape to my designs and what I like. But I really love this project, even though they are not perfect. And yes, thank you again for for the compliments. It means so much to me.
Thank you so much, Amaryllis and Maeve. This has been such a pleasure to kind of dissect the game and your process and hear more about your personal connection to the project. So without further ado, we'll move forward to the next game, which is Who Cares? And we'll have Haneen and G introduce themselves, please. Maybe starting with Haneen.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me well in the studio where you are. My name is Haneen, and I worked on this game as a writer. It was a really fun experience because we had a big team, and usually in game jams, we don't have a team that big. So this was my seventh game jam, and I really had a fun experience tackling topics that I don't normally talk about.
Thank you. And G?
Hello, I'm G, and I worked as a game designer in this game. And it was a very fun experience because we had a lot of people and everyone was really good at what they were doing. So it was a great time.
Amazing, thank you. So I'll start off by asking the same question that I asked to the Helping Hands team, and that, what theme within caregiving did you convey in this project, and why did you choose that specifically?
So, as I mentioned before, the theme was quite new to me, and I was one of the writers. The other person was working on narrative design, and we weren't exactly sure how to tackle the theme that Coven had given us without offending anyone, without saying something ignorant, something that we are not familiar with ourselves, because we both don't have any disabilities, and we both don't work in the healthcare system. So the inspiration came from the fact that we wanted to show what happens behind the scenes, and the title "Who Cares" is kind of a play on word, like who cares about these people? We just want our health to be taken care of without actually acknowledging what's going on with them and their emotions behind the scenes. But also, we were playing around with this sentence while developing the narrative, and it's who takes care of those who take care of us. And we tried to convey it from the point of view of a cat, because we thought, who doesn't like cats? Cats are very cute, and at the same time it would be probably easier to have the cat say these things. The cat is also, as you can see sometimes in the dialogue, is saying like, I think humans call that being a nurse, and like the cat is also treading new territory like we were as well.
Thank you for sharing that. G, was there anything else that you wanted to add about the theme and why you chose it?
I think when we were brainstorming, we wanted to make a simple idea, but without offending anyone, like Hanin said. So it was just that we needed to. Wait, can you hear me now? In the chat, they said it was kind of low. Oh, okay. Yeah, we just wanted to have a great story being told.
Thank you. That makes sense. Yeah, I really like the concept of the cat being the caretaker for the nurse, and the fact that you've exposed sort of the adversities that the nurse experiences, because you've contextualized it within the pandemic, and you've highlighted some interesting narratives in there. So I just want to know a little bit about I guess the game development process, and what were some of the highlights and challenges. Again, especially considering that it was just the two of you developing, correct? Did you have, or did you have other team members as well?
Yeah,
You
we
had some other team
had
members, yeah.
a lot of people actually for a jam. We had a artist and programmer, game designer, narrative designer, writer, and the audio person. We the development was really fun. It was challenging because we had different time zones. But in the first day we meet and we had a brainstorm session where we had great ideas, but it was kind of sad that we had to cut some because we wouldn't have time to make it. And I wanted to make sure that nobody was going to feel overwhelmed because everyone had they were busy in the week. So we needed a short idea that was easy to develop in the time we had.
That makes sense. Thanks. And were there any key moments or interactions within the game that especially resonated with you? So just thinking about maybe within the game experience itself.
I in general really love the way they wrote the story. It felt really touching, and when I first read it, I don't know, I just really loved, and yeah.
I feel like the art conveys a lot of the story, the emotions on the character's face. We had the opportunity to work with a really talented artist. I was mind blown, honestly, when I saw the prototypes. Riz Campanati couldn't be with us. Unfortunately, the time doesn't work for them, but they're really talented. The way they worked with the little lights and the way they happened to portray the cat and the main character as well, showing their emotions as the dialogue happens in the background.
And I also think the music was a highlight because Timrus, the person who was making the music, I really loved their work also, his work. It was impressive.
Thank you so much. And if considering that, Haneen, I know you mentioned you had done several game jams in the past. Were there any specific new lessons that you learned during this experience, or anything surprising or different?
I really, again, I really liked having a bigger team. I really liked having G with us because G worked as a game designer and a producer. So they were keeping us in check most of the time. And typically we don't have that in a game jam. Typically, the writer has to manage the writing. The programmer has to work on programming by themselves. But we were brought closer that way.
That's great. And G, was there anything new or surprising for you?
Well, it was my first time actually participating as a game designer, so it was great. I love it because later, in the past, I worked as a programmer, and I didn't really like it. But working as a game designer, it was great. And I also think because I worked as a programmer, it was easier to manage and see what we could do, so we would have time and to have time to polish the game and not just make something and leave undone.
That makes sense. Thank you so much. And I'd love to open it up to questions for some of the play testers. If anyone wants to ask anything about what you've seen so far.
Hello. Oh, yes. Hello. Sorry. I was just curious, and I'm sorry if any of this was covered whilst I was playing and kind of trying to listen along as I was reading. I'm curious, given kind of the time constraint of a game jam, were there particular things that you'd really hoped to include that you didn't have the time to? Or were there bits that you were kind of really pleased that you got to explore so much? Kind of curious as to what still exists in your heads that maybe is different to the game you were able to produce in that time.
Yeah, first we had an idea to make the cat interacting with things in the house. We wanted to make more things interactive and not just a story, but we saw that we wouldn't have time, so we just made the story really great and polished the buttons, the UI, so it would be a good experience.
Thank you. Haneen, was there anything you wanted to add to that response?
No, I think G covered everything.
Thanks so much. Are there any other questions from the design camp? Okay, so thank you so much, G and Haneen. This is a really beautiful game, and I'm grateful that we just had the opportunity to unpack it a little bit. Okay, so we'll move on to the final game that we'll be playtesting today, which is Missing in Margate. So June, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is June Barrett. I'm a long-term care worker and labor organizer here in the US. And I just want to apologize. I'm alone today, but I'll do my best. I would like to apologize for the absence of Marjana, Pablo, and Anna, who could not be here today, to answer some of the more technical questions. Yes, so I'm just going to give you a little overview of the game, Missing in Margate. And the game was designed to be an immersive, a kind of an intimate first-person exploration game that crafts a story of love, friendship, and care. It is set in Margate, one of England's most beloved seaside towns. The game is really played from, my perspective, my lived experience as a long-term care worker. who find myself alone in the house of one of my favorite elderly client, Mrs. Gallivan. As the mystery unfolds, clues from the present really begin to shed a light on the past. So during the Care Jam event, I think it was in December, National Domestic Workers Alliance and Marjana reached out to me and asked me, if I could, work as a sensitivity consultant. And I thought, yeah, I would make myself available for any questions that Marjana, Pablo, or Anna might have. So I got a call from Marjana early one morning, and she said, we got a problem. Can you give us some advice on how to move forward with this game? They already have the title they had for the game. And yes, so they already have the title for the game. And I said to them, why not tell the story from my perspective? And they said, okay, fine. And they called me back, and a few minutes later, and they said, we don't have a name for this person. And I said, let's use the word Gallivan. And the reason why Gallivan was that this client of mine was very flamboyant. She was a powerful activist. She was someone who was full of life. And the word Gallivan really, I don't know if that exists in the English dictionary, because that was from my grandmother. When we were playing, she would say, stop the Gallivan and go do the dishes. And so Gallivan means jovial, friendly, playful. So we came up with that. And yeah, so, and then they asked me, could you do, and actually, to do that at 7 a.m. my time, I went back to that house that this client, Mrs. Gallivan, was living in, and to get a feel once more, because she passed last July, so I went back to the house in that December to look around, and wanted me to remember objects, right? Like the typewriter, things that, was important to her, like a scarf, her favorite scarf that you would never home without. And of course, her New Balance sneakers, that was very important to her. And so it was important for the team to incorporate all of these important objects, favorite things of Mrs. Gallivan into the game.
Reports filed by Edgar Gallivan. Looks like a police report filed by Mistress Gallivan's older son. It's hard to make out the text, but from what I can read, on June 14, 2021, at 6:30 p.m., an altercation occurred between Edgar Gallivan and James Gallivan in their mother's house. Alleged
and this was
over
a regular occurrence of
large debts, unpaid.
Being called.
Thank you so much, June. Sorry, I wanted to let that memo play out
Yes.
just so that people could hear, because I know it's been a bit obfuscated by your speech just now. But no, this is very
you.
helpful context, and I just love how deeply personal this experience is in the way that you conveyed it and worked with the game developers. So, in fact, June, then you feel like, I mean, you were more than a sensitivity consultant in this project, right? That this project is, you were a game developer within it. And I think that's something that we tried to achieve within the Game Jam by creating this experience. So can you tell us a little bit more about your experience in developing this game, what that process was like to work with game developers, and any new learnings?
It was It was just a really powerful experience because, you know, as a domestic worker, our movement is really centered right now around care is also a global conversation. So when I was asked to be a part of the development of this game, I was just so excited that I was coming in from the experiences that I'm doing with culture change and putting it into a new platform, which is a gaming platform, right? So, you know, and working with Pablo and Anna, these folks are so brilliant. That too was a really unique experience because they were working on this game and they said, you know what, we want you to come in with your experience and to lead the narrative of this story. And I think when it comes to culture change, that's what we are doing now. You know, allowing domestic workers to sit in the writer's room, right, to tell their own story, right? So I think it's brilliant. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And on that note, June, are there any thoughts to further develop the project, or does this inspire you or perhaps anybody that's within the National Domestic Workers Alliance community to be more involved in using games as a storytelling medium?
Yes. As I mentioned before, the whole culture change. Right now, I'm involved in a cohort where I'm one of the co-facilitators at NDAA around culture change. So when I mentioned the game, when the game was brought up, and these are all domestic workers, organizers, and leaders, they were like overjoyed, right? That, you know, this is a reality, right? And so, you know, I'm going to give some context around domestic work and why this game is so important, right? You know, domestic workers, we are some of the most marginalized folks, right? And oftentimes the work that we do, right? The work that I did with many clients, including Mrs. Gallivan in this case, it is unrecognized, it is undermined, and it is not seen as real work. In Mrs. Gallivan's story, it is real work. It's work of also emotional labor. And you know, when people see this game, right, especially younger people, they will have a sense of what care is, and they will be better able to understand care work from a perspective of domestic work, care work from a perspective of whether it's whoever was giving that care, as we have seen in the previous two games. So.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I agree. I think this is an incredibly powerful way to express that, and will certainly and hopefully already has, you know, opened the minds and hearts of some of the players. I'd love to open it up to.
Yes, we do.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. We do plan to develop this game further. Yes, we have been in conversation around that. Sorry.
No, that's very exciting. Thank you so much, June. I'd love to open it up to questions from the playtesters so far, or anyone in the audience.
First of all, I really enjoyed like the graphics, and like, it's really amazing. And also like the narrative as well. We couldn't really hear it like that well, but I think it mixed with like how the graphics were set up. One question was like, how did the graphics was done? Like, was it done taking pictures of an actual place and then like drawing on top of it? We're just curious of like how this gorgeous graphic came to be.
Okay, so I'm based here. I'm based here in Miami. So as I mentioned before, that I literally went back to the house and took photographs, for example, of the place, right? Because the house is at that time was still there, right? So I took photo and then send the photo via WhatsApp to the team in London. And then from that, they would have an idea, you know, and then they would create the graphic.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, hello. Thank you also for sharing with us your work. I was having also a question regarding on the graphics. Is the artist a storyboard specialist or just by chance, or because it looks a lot like a storyboard art, and that has like a very cinematographic language behind.
Yes. Unfortunately, you know, the Annalie and Marjana and Pablo, they're not able to be here to answer some of those technical questions.
Yeah, we can share some contact details or relay the questions as well afterwards to the rest of the game development team. So I'll keep that one in mind in terms of the storyboard.
My question is, although I love the art, it's already been expressed how good it is, what the intended genre of the game was, because for me, it felt like a very melancholy, open-ended detective game. And I wondered if that was the intention of the designers or if there was something else you were working towards.
It was kind of a mystery, yes. It was a mystery love story. Like she's missing, and you know, all these objects that they're like the whole cash register, her New Balance shoes, her scarf. When I went into the house, all of those things, you know, was also, I think they were still there, you know, can't remember. So it was kind of a mystery. But in the end, you know, we also, you know, there's a part of the love letter, you know, that we read, and then we remembered. And it's funny because right in front of me, as I'm speaking to you, is a photograph of her with a scarf standing by the seaside there in Miami Shores. And so, you know, we ended up finding her, you know, in Margate by the seaside. So it's like a love mystery story. And it's kind of a true story. Yeah.
Hello. Not a question about graphics or technical details. I'd like to ask if your involvement in this game has changed in some way how you view your day-to-day work. I'm asking partly from the perspective of I once worked for 9 months as a caregiver, basically in a residential home for the elderly. And this might sound a bit funny. I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but in some ways that our work was full of little, slightly playful challenges in a, you know, obviously in a respectful way to the people we were dealing with, but there were all these kinds of challenges with, we had to do things fast, but in a way that was treating people as individuals and enjoying ourselves interacting with them, but also kind of little psychological games. If, for example, an elderly person didn't want to eat that day or that week, or didn't want to get up, or this it sounds like all sorts of manipulative and nasty things to try and get people to do things, but it was generally trying to persuade people to do things that was good for them. Like it's, you know, it's generally agreed to be good to eat sometimes. Sorry, I'm going on a bit too long. Never give me a mic, but do you know what I mean? Any comments about how your work might seem different now you've had
I think you said, how does, yes, asks, how did this work? Getting involved with this work change the way I think about the work that I'm doing. And the other one around games. Well, you know, I worked. I do not work in a facility. My internet might go. Oh my God. I work with clients, right? And you know, my philosophy and my is that that we develop ways in which, like silent languages, that we communicate, that I communicate and others with our clients, right? Without being manipulative, right? If my client doesn't want to wake up at 8 as they do every morning, you leave that client and allow them some time to, I believe a client should be able to make decisions within reason, right? And that is going to take another whole story, right? And being a part of this game, right? Really think that this is like the dopest thing that they have ever heard of, right? I said, our lives are so analyzed, right? That we are organizing now to shift and to change around labor, right? You know, around benefits, right? Around how people see care. And the pandemic, I'm going to say this again, the pandemic has really shown the light on how vulnerable we are. One, and how important we are as care workers, right? And so every single platform that we can get to shout it from the mountaintop, that care is essential, that care is important. We're just going to step in and step up on those platforms and let our voices be heard globally, right? So we can, here in America, we are fighting for a national domestic workers bill of rights, right? And so the more stories that are out there about our lives, it's the more, by the way, forgive my English language, I'm a Jamaican, I chop the English language up. So it's the more allies, right, that we'll have on our side. So definitely, yes, Missing in Margate has been a winner for us. And that's why the team and we are planning to do more work on this game. Once again, sorry for the absence of Ana, Pablo, and Marjana, who could have, given you a deeper context around this game. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. I think we have time for one more question, if there are any other questions from the audience. And maybe we can open this up now if you have any further questions about any of the 3 games that we've seen here today. And thank you so much again to June, Haneen, Amaryllis, G, and May for participating. No other questions? Okay, are there any final?
Yes, one last question.
Oh yeah, one last question.
Sorry, me, Nico again. Were you thinking about a special profile of player when you were brainstorming the game? I mean, were you aiming to a specific group of people or ages, or I don't know, like?
When we look at
I can open the question
gaming,
to 3 games. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. I think it was right. I said before. Right now, care is a global conversation, and since the pandemic, right? But people do not understand. And these 2 games that went before mine, I was deeply moved by that. Some people do not have the least comprehension, right? Care and what care is and what care entails, right? So I think it's important that we use, as I said before, whatever platform to bring, attention to the plight of care, because here in America we have a bill called the Build Back Better bill that care workers and people with disability, hundreds of domestic workers, mobilized in Washington D.C. to get this bill passed. And is essential, right? And care is important, right?
I think I can talk a bit about who cares in terms of the audience as well, if you want. For us, it was we tried to make it as accessible to everyone as possible, limiting the interactions and the mechanics and everything. But at the same time, it is emotionally charged. It is a topic that is sensitive, and it might not be understood well by children as much as older people.
Actually, I wanted to ask June. Hello. I was wondering if you could post the name of your organization and the bill you're talking about in the chat, so I could look into them. I live in the U.S. as
thank-
well and have
okay.
family members that work in caregiving, and I would share that with them.
Yeah, that's
doing
a
that now,
good
right?
question, May. And I didn't mention earlier that the Care Jam was created in partnership with Coven, the National Domestic Workers Alliance, Caring Across Generations, and Counterpoint's Arts. So Marcia, who's present right now, is from Counterpoint's Arts. And unfortunately, we couldn't have representatives from Caring Across Generations, but June is sort of representing the NDWA today. So I do encourage you all to read about the incredible work that all of these organizations are doing and trying to push forward in terms of advocacy. And I think it is very aligned with the theme of the Now Play This Festival, which is democracy. One of the key intentions behind creating this Care Jam was to democratize the game development process, not just for underrepresented game developers, but also to actually have domestic workers share their stories through this medium and democratize that in that way as well. And I think we're just at time. So thank you so much again to everybody who's participated, both the Game Jam participants as well as the Design Camp participants. So hopefully this has provided some inspiration and insight as you move forward in your Design Camp, and looking forward to seeing some of the creations that come out of your experience. And I guess if anybody wants to follow any of the work that you're doing, to any of the Care Jam participants, if you want to drop maybe social media links in the chat, and otherwise we can provide a link to the itch page, which has the collection of games from the Care Jam, if you want to go and play them at home later. So I can drop that in the chat as well.
Super. Thanks so much, Carla. Thanks so much to all the wonderful designers in the Zoom, and big round of applause for this amazing group.